Hi, my name is Aaron and this is my show, Reeducation, and today we're going to talk about value, specifically how we are able to determine value. And I'm going to do this in a couple of different systems. I'm going to start off with capitalism, and then I'm going to work my way through to Marxism, and finally I'm going to finish with how we determine value in an anarcho-communist structured system. So, under capitalism, you determine value through the free market, through supply and demand. When something is determined, when a value is determined through the free market, through supply and demand, that obviously brings up a few major flaws. The first of which being that you can artificially inflate supply. You can do this very easily, and an example of that is when you do something like diamond mining. If you were to go out diamond mining and you're able to, say, dig up 1,000 pounds of diamonds, you wouldn't want to release all of those diamonds onto the market all at once because then you would do something called flooding the market. And that will inevitably lower the cost of each individual diamond. But if you take those diamonds, that 1,000 pounds of diamonds, and you put it inside of a vault and you only release a few diamonds at a time, then that will increase the demand because the market has not been flooded with the diamonds, so more people will want those diamonds. It'll increase the demand and therefore increase the price that you can sell those diamonds at. So that is artificially inflating the market to make its value, the value of that specific commodity, higher. It doesn't mean that those diamonds are more rare or that they should intrinsically be more expensive or that it took more labor or hours or time or whatever to make it more expensive. It just means that you strangled the market and forced it to be that way. Now, the other problem is that you can, just the same as inflating the supply or deflating the supply, you can increase the demand for something. And you can increase the demand for something very simply as well. Say you have a product that most people don't usually need to pay for, and then you make it incredibly difficult to get that product for free, increasing the demand. For example, water. If for some reason, the structure of a society, the infrastructure in a community has gotten to the point of decay so fucking far that it has become a national health crisis and people are drinking poisoned, lead-filled water, all of a sudden, now water becomes a scarce commodity, something that people demand. And Nestle, somebody that bottles water, can come in and sell that product to them, artificially increasing the demand. Now, they could solve that problem by fixing the infrastructure, but, I mean, where's the incentive to really do any of that? So obviously there are some major problems when it comes to supply and demand when determining the value of a good. So let's go along and see if maybe Marx came up with a better solution. And it turns out that he did come up with another solution. That other solution, of course, is the labor theory of value, where instead of a good's value being determined by the market, by free exchange, by supply and demand, it's determined by the amount of labor that's put into it. So the amount of labor that each item has invested in it directly reflects the amount of usable value that that commodity has on the open market. So a certain amount of hours put into producing a coat is equivalent to a certain amount of hours put into producing a loaf of bread. And of course, this brings up obvious problems as well. The first of which being that nothing has any value outside of what someone else is willing to pay for it. And that's just because people might not need certain things in certain situations. That's why they have the distinction between useful and unuseful labor. But there's really quite a bit of gradation when you're talking about that, because dependent on the community, you may or may not need all kinds of different goods. And that makes the labor theory of value kind of a big pain in the ass, because any time that you set one thing as the determining factor for something else, then you better hope that that thing is able to be measured accurately. And when it comes to labor and commodities, you really can't. Somebody that works slower or that just is not nearly as skilled as somebody else is going to put in more labor into a product than the person that is good and fast at it, because that's just how human beings are. And that's the problem with trying to put any kind of value on a commodity in the first place. That's the problem with money, for example, is that we're arbitrarily trying to affix some sort of value form to something that fundamentally just does not have it. You can measure feet and inches. You can measure the size of this desk in a numerical scale because we have determined that this much is an inch and this much is a half an inch, and we can measure things in that kind of increments. But when you're talking about something as nebulous as how much labor is involved or how much somebody desires an item, then we're talking about several layers of gradations. We're talking about things that do not have a finite conclusion. And that's where anarcho-communism comes in. You see, because anarcho-communists understand that you can never affix a permanent value to any commodity. Simply trying to do something like that is just generally impossible. When you look at the way things are priced right now, it has nothing to do with labor, and it has nothing to do with the free market. What it has to do with is how much somebody is willing to pay for it. That's why you have the diamonds versus water paradox. See, water is infinitely more valuable to human life than diamonds are. And yet diamonds are worth infinitely more money than water is. And that's because things are only worth what you are willing as a person to pay for them. So to eliminate that, to get rid of that idea entirely, what anarcho-communists have decided to do, what they have come up with for their alternative structure, is something known as a gift economy. You see, everybody in the community does labor and produces goods and services. Goods specifically go into a community store, where basically anything that you need is put into that store, and you're able to freely go in and take the thing that you need and leave with it without using any formal transaction. Because the formal transaction that you would be using is something known as the barter system. And of course, many people know exactly what I'm talking about. This kind of barter system is looked at as being, from me, a type of market when I'm explaining this to certain individuals. But when I'm talking about this to other fellow anarchists, we know that we're talking about a barter system. And the barter system can be enforced by a contract. That's right. So when you enter into a anarcho-communist structured society, you come in with the intention of giving to the community what you can provide to them, and getting out from the community what you need. You see, you can't base things that you need and things that the community needs on the same metric, because the things that the community needs are different from the things that you need personally. And the things that you need personally shouldn't be arbitrarily granted a number based on how much you need it. You should just get it because the society is able to produce it. This is a type of barter system, and as I've explained in the past, a type of market, even though fundamentally, yes, I will agree, many anarcho-communists say that markets should be abolished and that they can't exist, even though this is literally a type of market. But it really depends on the way that you define market. So if you define a market as the free marketplace of capitalism where goods are exchanged for dollars, then no, this is something completely different. This is more akin to trading with somebody. Now, if you define market by its dictionary definition, though, it is an area or arena in which commercial dealings are conducted. So, of course, it really depends on your personal definition. So if you want to call that a type of market, then go right ahead, because I find it's far easier to explain these concepts to non-anarchists in language that everybody understands. The gift economy, a bartering system, a market without money, if you will. if we want to put it in those kinds of terms. Anyway, this is my show, Reeducation. My name is Aaron. Thanks for watching.